Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. This is part two of real estate versus hospitality. And the special guest what I have for us today is Marc Hostovsky. He's the founder and CEO of Minoan. And a lot of you already know that Minoan focuses on helping hosts save money on furnishings, but they also have a vision of ways to change brands and how they view and work with hosts by creating spaces that inspire guests. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. And Marc has a great background in sales and e-commerce, but he's going to tell his story. And also he's going to tell us why you need to be focused on hospitality, why you need to budget for the hospitality, and how that's going to bring you more revenue. So without further ado, Marc, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Marc Hostovsky. I'm the founder and CEO of Minoan. My background's in retail. So I was an early employee at a company called Jet.com. Jet sold to Walmart for $3.3 billion back in 2016. And I had this big epiphany from working in retail where I realized that the best shopping experiences, they don't actually happen on screens the way they do in e-commerce, and they don't happen on shelves or in aisles the way they do in stores. They happen in real moments of use. The best shopping experiences actually happen in short-term rentals, to be honest, where you're actually sleeping on the mattress for 8 hours a night, drinking the cup of coffee in the morning. And I had this realization that all these brands who care so much about getting in front of people, like they should really want to get in short-term rentals and in these properties. And we built Minoan to really help facilitate that and give hosts access to these deep discounts from brands, and make it easy for brands to get their products in the wild and have people actually using their products on a daily basis.
Okay. So I want to dive a little bit. Let's dive more into your origin story. So tell us more, give us a little more background. Feel free, I think we'll talk more about Minoan in a second and why you got into that. But tell us more about your background, because I think it's actually really interesting how this morphed into what it is today. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I can go all the way back. I won't spend too much time on the earlier stuff. I've never really talked about that. But I'll start with after college, I guess. My first job after college was a BDR, which I found out, now we all know what a BDR is. It's like a glorified telemarketer,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is not really what I thought. But I talked to a lot of people graduating college early in their career and what should I do? And I say, you should be a BDR for a little while, because it teaches you so much about value props and how to get in touch with people and how to communicate in such a short amount of time. And it also teaches you a lot just about rejection. I mean, you get hung up on, if you're doing 150, 200 dials a day, you're making 4 or 5 connections, you're getting hung up on and cursed at 3 or 4 of those times. You're lucky you get 1 or 2. We're like, okay, I'll talk to you. And so I think that was very formative for me. So I spent a few years doing that. Someone I worked with at a company called CEB, someone I worked with, who I was quite close with, we talked about startups all the time, suddenly just left. He was like, I'm going to work at this company called Jet.com. I was like, what? You can't leave me here. Who am I going to talk to startups about? And he was like, well, this is a huge opportunity. I can't talk about it yet. It's under wraps, but you'll see some news about it. And then 4 or 5 months later, he was like, hey, we're actually hiring a salesperson. Would you be interested? I was like, at this point, for people who are familiar with sales, usually you start in this BDR role and it's soul crushing. And then you become an account executive and you're commission based. And then actually you can make a lot of money. And so I had just kind of moved up where, I was making more money than both my parents combined at the age of 25. And I was like, I don't know, man, I'm kind of enjoying what I'm doing. And I don't really know if I want to leave, but yeah, sure, I'll take a meeting. I'm going to be in New York anyways, meeting with clients. And I sat down and I met with the chief revenue officer of Jet.com, Scott Hilton, and he just in this in an LPQ, which is a I think it's like Le Pain Quotidien. It's like a, like a French bakery. They have a bunch in New York. And I sat down and he was just talking me through this vision of how,
Mm.
Amazon's an incredible company, but they have this weakness, which is the entire business is designed around getting you one item as quickly as possible. And that's really expensive. One item in a box, shipping it quickly, it's just expensive. And if you could build a new model where you encourage people to basket build, don't just buy one thing, buy 5, 6, 7, 8 things, and convince them to slow down. Hey, do you need it next day or can you wait 3 to 5 days? You have this huge cost advantage, actually. Like you're pulling costs out of the system. And we are going to build that. And here's how it's going to work. And we just raised all this money. And I remember leaving the LPQ and like going into a meeting with, we sold the financial services. So I was going into a meeting with like a bank or something. And I
Yeah.
was like, suddenly my job seems like, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. That sounds awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go after Amazon. And so then I quit and worked at Jet, and it was a crazy startup. I mean, it was like raised a bunch of money. I was there pre-launch. We launched the business. And then within 10 months of launching the business, we were doing $80 million a month in
Wow.
sales. $1 billion annualized run rate, basically. And it was a blur. I mean, things were happening so fast. It was so chaotic, but it was going really well. And then, but we were burning a lot. I mean, we raised a lot of, I didn't raise anything. Mark, Lori, the founder, raised a lot of money. And then eventually, met with Walmart, and Walmart at the time was trying to build up their e-commerce business. They saw it as an existential threat with how fast Amazon was growing. Like if they couldn't get Amazon or couldn't get their own e-commerce business going the right way. So they bought Walmart, and I went over as part of that deal, and I took over pretty large, like about a $400 million P&L within sporting goods at Walmart. And that was when I really got exposure to like the stores side of the business, like retail stores for the first time. I'd always, I'd been working on e-commerce, like, okay, optimizing the screens, optimizing pricing, thinking through merchandising, all that. And then started working on the store side of the business. And one of the big issues with e-commerce was like, you're not touching or feeling the product. And so if you're a merchant, anyone who's been a merchant in e-commerce, that's like the hardest thing. How do you like communicate the physical experience of the product with imagery and text?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can do that effectively, sometimes you can't. I would say not that different than what hosts have to do with short-term rental. Okay, I have this beautiful property, but how do I like capture it effectively with photography and descriptions to really communicate how compelling this is? And so when I worked on the store side, I was like, oh, this is it. This is like real retail. You touch, you feel the product, you see how it goes. And then I realized, as I was working with the stores team, I'm like, actually, that's not it at all. Like the stores are just so focused on dollar per square foot. It's like a machine. Like there's this fixed cost of running a store, and it's about efficiency. And like, actually, it's like really not that good of a product experience. It's about cramming as much stuff in as small of a space as possible. Yeah. And around this time, I was like having this feeling. I'm like, how do we create like better product experience? Like retail just feels broken. Like this isn't the way to do it. The best products don't shine in this environment. They don't shine on screens or shelves. They shine, when you have samples, when the buyers would get samples and try the product. And I stayed at a short-term rental in upstate New York with my now wife at the time, where we were just enamored with the property and like the mattress and the linens and the coffee and the knife set and the coffee mugs and the shower head. And to the point where I was like crawling in to the shower and I was like, where is this from? Like take a picture so I can like look it up later. And I was like, this is where these brands should want to be. If you make a great product that really impresses people, you want to be in short-term rentals. That's where you want to be. Well, how do they get in there? And really, actually, they should view short-term rental hosts as marketing partners, not just customers, because it's a very different relationship. You make money off your customers. marketing partners help you make money, help you make more money. And so there's just a swirling around that like hosts deserve to be viewed differently and deserved better pricing than other businesses or normal customers. And that all kind of came together with the creation of Minoan like almost 5 years ago, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely, yeah, it's been a minute. So that's pretty exciting how like that evolved, I think, into what Minoan is today. But how did you, when you got, we're gonna, everyone listening, I think this transition or this evolve, the story of the origin story of Minoan, I think, is important. We will talk about real estate versus hospitality it all ties in together. And so, how did you transition into? So you stayed at some short term rentals, but how did you know like that was the space to get into and to trust that was the space? Because it's pretty early. You know what I mean? Like especially
Yeah.
5 years ago, like that was definitely early on.
Yeah. I didn't know for sure. I think I was in the idea maze. I was like, I think this should work. How should it work? And that one experience at the short-term rentals where I was like, this is one place where this could definitely work. And then I talked to that host and I was like, where did you buy this stuff? And he's like, oh, all over the place. And I was like, oh, I loved like the mattress or the lint. Like, can you send it to me so I can go buy it? And then he was like forwarding me like, email receipts basically. And I was like,
Yeah.
wait, you paid full price for this? What? No. This is
Yeah.
crazy. Like, like, not only are you creating another sale, like, and then when we started, getting into short-term rentals, it was just about like popping our heads into conferences and talking to people and getting to know content partners in the industry and
Mhm.
understanding their frustrations and their challenges. And then like one after another, it's not like it was really clear at the beginning. Like we weren't really sure. And then suddenly we got people using us and then they really liked it. And then they gave us more feedback. We're like, oh, actually, yeah, why don't we do it this way? It should be this way. And then we'd make some changes and then more people would like it. They'd like it even more. And then they'd recommend more changes or they'd recommend brands that we should work with. And then next thing now we got like hundreds of thousands of properties who are using us.
And what's your guys' goal and mission at Minoan? So obviously you guys have some different services and things, but what's your mission? Like, what are you really trying to help people accomplish?
Yeah. The vision is to really bring native retail to life. And native retail is like a loaded term. So I'll break that down a little bit. This idea of native retail is bringing product experiences into native environments where you're already going to be using it.
Mm.
Like where you're sleeping on the mattress, where you're sleeping on the pillow, where you're sitting in the kitchen and using the appliances and looking at the wallpaper and using the lighting. We call that native retail. And when you peel back the layers of that, what that really means is changing the relationship between brands and their B2B customers, specifically short-term rental hosts, where they don't just view short-term rental hosts as customers to make money off of. They view hosts as also marketing partners,
Mm.
channels, a marketing channel to help them get their product out in front of people and used in very rich moments, by the way. I mean, if think about a brand paying $7 for a click on Google, if a click is worth $7, what's it worth to have someone like sleep on your mattress for Google
Mm.
Flights? It's got to be worth a hell of a lot more than that. And it's really about changing this dynamic where you're elevating hosts out of just this customer bucket and into more of this marketing partner bucket, which then changes the economics for hosts. And it gives brands new ways to get their products out in front of people, which is what hosts, that's what hospitality is all about. It's about designing experiences, and a big part of designing the experience is thinking about all the stuff
Yep.
going to go into the home that's going to be part of the guest experience. And so it's very symbiotic, and the goal is to just make it easy for everyone to get involved.
Okay. So how does that specifically like tie into hospitality versus real estate?
Yes. Well, I think that obviously there's a big boom in short-term rentals over the last couple of years. A lot of people entered the short-term rental industry, and hospitality I consider hospitality like a subsection of the real estate industry, but it has very distinct differences. And when you think about, for example, real estate, if you think about like tenants or long-term leasing, well, long-term we'd say is like usually 12 months or longer on a lease. You're finding an asset that you think will appreciate in value or generate cash flow. And it's really about the asset itself.
Yep.
It's an empty box, the tenant's coming in and furnishing it. Okay. Hospitality, the asset you choose is very important, but really it's like the asset, the home that you buy has an inherent range in ADR, let's say. You buy a home and it's like it based on its inherent properties, maybe it has a really nice view, maybe it's close to town, maybe it's close to a beach. It has a range. And it could either be, maybe that range is this place could rent for 300 a night or it could rent for 700 a night, almost like, this is maybe a weird analogy, like genetics, like we all have genes when we're kids and those genes predispose us to certain outcomes. And it's like, maybe it's like, okay, these genes mean this person's going to be between 5'8" and 6'3". And then someone else has genes that are like, this person's going to be between 6 feet and 6'5". And then through life, through diet, through other things that happen, you land somewhere in that range. I think with homes, they have this range. And then where you end up on that range is heavily influenced by how you furnish it and how you think through the guest experience. And that's, the difference, I think, between hospitality and real estate. Real estate, there's a much narrower range. You're buying an asset. Well, again, hospitality is a subsection of real estate. So they are the same, but pure, some people, the way they think about real estate is it's just the asset. I care about the asset and the asset has these inherent properties. The beautiful thing about short-term rentals is you can kind of like stretch the value of that asset by creating unique experiences or doing unique things. This is something Bill Faith does incredibly well. I mean, when you look at the property in Montana and the Hype Dome and, he's finding ways where he's taking assets that already have inherent value. They have this good ADR range, but he's doing all the things to make sure he reaches the full potential, the highest end of that ADR range. And a lot of that is through choosing what items go in the property. And when you're furnishing a 3-bedroom home from scratch, you're ordering over 200 items. You don't think about it, but everything, there's so much stuff you're ordering. And being really thoughtful about where does it make sense to invest in? Do you buy cheap soap and shampoo or do you buy really nice soap and shampoo? Do you buy cheap mattresses or do you buy really nice mattresses? Do you put out some cheap wicker furniture or do you put out some nicer polywood furniture? Or do you put in a fire pit or do you put in a hot tub? Those are all the things that help you land on the higher end of that inherent ADR range. And that's what hospitality is all about. I think the fun part about hospitality is about buying an asset and then stretching it as best you can. The best people buy an undervalued asset and they just rip, they see the value in it and they hit that upper part of the range. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, they have
what
that.
About you?
Yeah.
You have all the data, what drives performance and what don't. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, for me, I 100% agree with that. I think that I like to look at things and break it down into buckets or categories. And all of our listeners that, they're to this podcast, they're going to know I talk about, the value of location, quality of the property, design decor, and amenities. And depending on the market and where you're at, certain things have a larger impact than others. And so, for me, I'm very trying to, get more calculated with it. But this is a question I have for you, though, a follow-up question. So one of the biggest fears I hear a lot of people have with understanding this concept of stretching that, increasing that ADR by stretching what, the quality of your design and decor that you're adding to the property and adding particular amenities. But how much is too much? Like like you can easily overspend in
Totally.
this business. So from your experience, and working with hosts and having these like design, these nice design properties, like how do you figure that out?
I think it depends on the audience. You should go into any investment or rental having an idea of the type of audience you anticipate to come and stay. It may change. You may have designed for one audience, you may have designed for families, and you're getting a lot of bachelor parties, and maybe that's okay, but I think going in with intentionality around a specific audience will help inform how you think about those investments. You can totally overdo it. But with luxury properties, I mean, they get nice, like everything. And we work very closely with Beach Plum Properties and this woman Becca who has a property in Stowe called Mile Away, and we went and shot some content there, and everything is nice. Everything is not. Even the books that go in the bookcase in the library are very thoughtfully chosen. These are not like rinky-dink books. They're like big fight-in books. And she charges a lot. I mean, she charges a lot for that property, and it does really well. And so it's really about and she goes after a very specific audience, which is a more discerning traveler who really appreciates, smaller luxury. We can't all do that. But it can be done really well. She's also a phenomenal designer. I mean, she's got a lot of skills to allow her to do this well. The way that we encourage most people to think about where to invest, there's sort of like this Minoan matrix we talk about, where on like the y-axis you have aesthetic important,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the x-axis you have functional importance. Is it going to be used often?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to do this. Okay, so if this is the graph, high functional or high aesthetic value and high functional value is where it makes sense to invest. And we call this like the sit, sleep, eat quadrant. So anywhere where people are sitting, sleeping, or eating, it's worth investing in those spaces. Why? Okay, let's talk about it from an aesthetics perspective. You are selling photos, right? I mean, unless it's a return customer and they've already been at the property, then you're selling the property. But for everyone else, you're selling a photo of the property. And so the photography is incredibly important. It's very similar to e-commerce. In e-commerce, you're selling a product that's actually sitting in a warehouse somewhere, but you're selling this, you're selling it abstractly through visuals. So anywhere where people are sitting, sleeping, or eating aesthetically usually are the focal points of a room.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about a bedroom, the bed.
Right.
And I don't mean the mattress, I mean the bed. So the photography of the bedroom, the bed is going to be right in the middle. And so it's aesthetically important. It has a huge influence on how that bedroom looks in photography and when someone opens the door. But also they're spending a third of their time on that mattress. And so functionally also very, very important. They're going to spend a lot of time on it. And you could say the same thing with like the living room and the living room coffee table and living room sofa. You do the same thing about the kitchen and kitchen stools and kitchen table. And so sit, sleep, or eat, it's sort of a nice simplified framework to think about where you should really not skimp. And then everything else, it's sort of up to you. Like some people really value aesthetics. And so areas that have high aesthetic value, but no functional value, like art on the wall. Like sometimes people go really ham on art, and that works for their property. It gives a very distinct look and feel. And other people go ham on functionality. We have some hosts who like are chefs, and they're like, I will not have light, dinky silverware in my Airbnb. It's gonna it has to have weight to it, heft. It's got to be good. We're gonna have good knives. And so, and I think that's the great thing about short-term rentals is they're not cookie cutter. It's like every short-term rental in many cases is a little bit of a reflection of the curator of the space and who's running it. And so I think the rest is sort of up to like what you value and what you really want to make a selling point for the property.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, when you speak to, you mentioned Bill Faith and other designers and things, that's exactly what they say is, where are people going to be spending the most time? What can improve marketability? You want to invest in good mattresses and things that people are going to be using, durability, those things. And then, maybe the art pieces or maybe like different elements can be cheaper, and don't necessarily need to be that like expensive brand name product.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get like caught up like it's like one way or the other, when in reality it's like it's a mix, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it goes back to, I've said this on episodes before, and I'll just keep hitting it again. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, work with people who do, right? Because
Totally.
they're going to help you maximize your budget, or make it more like optimal or efficient. And, in a sense to fine tune it in a way where you're going to maximize revenue, but also not overspend. So, yeah. All right. So in terms of, with what Minoan, so Minoan to me, and you've touched on a few of these things, but I want you to go more into this. Like, so Minoan to me has been more like, not just like, oh, we help people save money, we help hosts save money on furnishings. You've got the new showroom coming up,
Yeah.
and there's other elements too in this, like marketing aspect. Talk more about that. Tell us more about what that is and why that's important.
Yeah. It's all about empowering hosts to get what they deserve.
Mhm.
And because hosts are creating these very valuable moments every single day between people and products in their spaces,
Mhm.
they deserve some credit. And the
Yeah.
way that Minoan makes sure they get that credit is by giving them really good discounts on everything they're buying up front. That's through the Minoan purchasing platform, how most people know us. And the second thing is if you've created a moment of inspiration, like that host did for me years ago, where I crawled into the shower to take a picture of the shower head and took the pillows out of the pillowcases to find the tags, like where it's from. If you've created a space that's inspiring guests, and if you've gotten these messages or calls from guests that are like, "Where did you get this? I really love this." That's a sign that you are inspiring guests. And if you are, you should get credit for that too. There's a whole affiliate world out there and marketing world where brands pay for that. And so the way that we allow hosts to easily tap into that is through the showroom product, which we're launching to our members on September 9th, which we're excited about. And we're going to talk a little bit more publicly about it at the end of the month, which is just a very simple way to build a showroom or a shoppable digital store for your property. And there's a few things we really focused on optimizing for when we relaunched this product, because we have showroom now currently, but we didn't open it up to everybody. It was very restricted, and we were testing and learning. We've learned a lot, and so we're relaunching it in a big way. One thing is it's very easy to set up a showroom now. It takes minutes to set it up. It's free. I mean, it's always been free, but we used to charge for like touch points, like something like this to make the property shoppable so that you have an entry point.
Yeah,
Now
so just everyone listening, it's a sign with a QR code that says found something you like, and it's got items there. So anyway, that's a really good idea.
So it's all free. It's easy to set up. It's really slick in the design, and it's all affiliate. It's an affiliate infrastructure. So we're just sending people to, West Elm or Wayfair or Public Goods or wherever offsite, and set up from an infrastructure perspective where if they buy anything from that site, there's a commission that we can then distribute back to the host. And the other thing that we did in this new version we're very excited about is we're allowing hosts to really curate a little bit. And so they can highlight local products. You can even make stuff shoppable that you didn't buy through Minoan. Like if you live in Vermont, like I do, and you work with Vermont Soap Company, and Minoan doesn't work with Vermont Soap Company, but if you use them in the property, you can now in the new showroom experience make them shoppable in your showroom, and you can tag it as a local product. And so you can really showcase to the guests, hey, here's some stuff that's local that we bought to make part of your experience. You can also add stuff from Amazon or Etsy or wherever. So we've really opened it up where it doesn't just need to be stuff you bought through Minoan, it's also stuff you purchased everywhere. And it's all around this idea of empowering hosts to view themselves as four-walled influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Because whether you want to take advantage of it or not, you are creating intimate moments of attention in your property. And there's ways to capitalize on that without it being like pernicious or salesy. You don't need to have like sales tags hanging from everything and have prices on things. In fact, the way we've designed the showroom, there aren't even prices. You're just scrolling through products because we don't want it to feel salesy. We want it to just feel exploratory. But then once you click, like, yeah, actually, I do want to learn more, then the price comes out. And that's all done off-site. So it creates this nice separation that feels very native, sort of like present but not overwhelming for guests. And so it's all around this idea of like, you are a four-walled influencer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you so choose to take advantage of that and understand it and lean into it, we're giving you all the tools to be able to do that effectively and make it really just easy. And like you can get set up in minutes and get all this data around clicks, conversion, customer, understanding what the engagement looks like in the property with the items.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I can't tell you how many times, people are like, oh, what mattresses, or like, what's this or what's that, like you said, you're digging through, receipts or orders or whatever. And you're like trying to tell people. And so that's actually really cool. And it's another potential revenue stream for people as well.
Totally.
So I mean, like, even like, if you have a lot of listeners, I've seen their properties. They have really, really nice properties. And people are all oh, how did you do that? Or where did you get that from? It's not even just with your own guests, but other hosts too, maybe even friends who are starting out, like sharing and showing, and people can get the same stuff and you benefit from it. You know what I mean? So that's really cool. That's a solid idea.
One of the things we're focused on doing early next year is actually putting a map of all the Minoan showrooms like on the website. And so people can go around and hover and then you can explore and get inspiration and see all the just incredible properties that have been furnished really well through Minoan and that have been turned into showrooms. And so there should be a fun element of like discovery once we're able to build that.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because a lot of people need that that copy paste kind of mentality of like the inspiration, I guess, is probably a nicer way to put it than copy paste. But I mean, I'm like that too. I'm like, cool, like they're really good at this stuff, like this designer or this person. Let me go see their showroom and see what they used and draw inspiration from that, see the products they did. How do they save money? How did they pull this off without spending, X amount or whatever? And so going and actually, seeing the items together with the actual, and then clicking in to see the real prices. That's cool. That's really awesome. So it's more, I guess, transparent too for hosts. And then I love that inspiration idea. So cool.
Yeah. And then all we need to do is then connect it with you and try and get some data around like, where do you get good bang for your buck? Is it worth buying the fancy coffee beans or should you just do Folgers, or is it worth getting nice appliances? We see one side of the data, but we're not connected. Anecdotally, we know because we talk to our hosts often, and we know who's doing well and who's struggling, and so we see like, okay, anytime someone like buys nicer stuff, they tend to be doing pretty well, and it's sometimes the people who are trying to cut corners and that come back, and we see they maybe the first time around they bought these like really cheap like metal bed frames, and then like a few months later they're coming back and buying a nicer wooden one because they got a bad review or something like that. But you have all the data around the performance. And so that'll be, one day we'll have to do a fun.
Yeah, well, we found this so we have data like on mainly just amenities, but what we found this one site Airbnb uses. They're called Resby or something like that, and it's an AI site where they're able to take a picture and pull out every single item in that picture and the quality of that item too. So, like for example, granite countertops, or like it could literally like look at your background and tell you like all the stuff, and then also
Yeah,
try to date it as well, which is crazy. So like
that's cool.
not even but like even the materials of the home, like oh the wood paneling and this and that, and it like literally hundreds of data points, or technically thousands, if you do like the entire house. And so it will tell you the quality of the appliances and, like stainless steel versus like this or that or whatever. It's crazy. And we've been looking at that. But the problem is it's so expensive to pull, because you can take those properties. Sure. Okay, cool. Like, you pull a couple properties, but in order to really get the good stuff that you're looking for, you got to look at like hundreds or thousands, and it's like, it's expensive, but it's such cool technology. I think we'll be able to answer some of these questions in the coming years
Yeah.
easier,
It's incredible technology. The problem is that the images can't tell you everything, and so like,
well, and if
no
they take
matter
bad
how,
images,
yeah,
bad pictures, like, that's,
and
yeah.
even in a perfect image, you take a picture of a bed, you're not going to be able to tell me what the mattress is. You're not going to be
No.
able to tell me where they got the linen. You're just going to show, it's like, okay, these are white linens. I've seen these before, but what type? You can't even tell me if it's percale or sateen or anything. You can't tell me what pillows are underneath there. You can't tell me, so things that have a clear visual identity, like a picture of Miss Meyer's soap. Yeah, this is going to be great. But there's lots of things that are really important to the guest experience, that because we've also looked at this stuff and we're like, oh, how could we use this in our own world? And that was the problem we kept coming up against. We're like, we would use it. We'd be like, actually, we know what the product was because they ordered it from us, and it's not. It's not that. Or
Yeah. No, I got you.
but
Yeah,
but
that's interesting though. It's like,
but it gets a lot of it. I mean, that's only for some items. That's not for a lot of items. It can do a really good job of pulling that out.
yeah, I think that, if you guys, I think you guys are trying to track this better, but like getting a better idea of like the people who are ordering from you, what they've ordered, and then how they're performing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, that's the key there, and then you just have to like amass data over time, and then like you see the results, and then you can go, okay, this is it. But a big part of it too is looking at reviews.
Totally.
So, it's not just, okay, cool, they use this like specific brand of sheets, but that might not necessarily, I mean, there's so many other variables, right? So it's like, how does that actually impact revenue? Like that's a hard one, but it's really going to show up in the reviews and what people are saying.
Totally.
So yeah, that's the interesting part. So like, I think that's something the listeners can take away from this too, is, when you're diving into these properties, understand what these people are, like if you find a property that's high quality, go look at the reviews, not just the rating. The rate, I don't know. I think ratings can be deceptive sometimes. It's like, oh, they have 5 stars, but we see in some markets they're a little more forgiving than others, depending on the guest avatar and everything. And so it's like, what kind of quality? We could see properties that have really high quality with 5 stars, and properties that are lower quality still with 5 stars because the hosts are really nice or something, and it's clean, which is what people expect at minimum. But what are people actually saying about the high quality properties? Like, what makes them high quality to the guests?
Totally. It's actually really interesting. We worked with a group that does analysis on Airbnb reviews, and we found that furnishings are twice as likely to show up in a bad review than a good review, which is like, if you don't have good stuff, that you really get punished for it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And if you have good stuff, sometimes it comes up. I mean, we saw reviews where many reviews where people are like, oh, they had a lay low high chair, which my kid loved. You do get credit. The pack and play is really big. but it's sort of like there's more downside. It's more so a risk mitigation because they're twice as likely to show up. People are twice as likely to complain about furnishings that they didn't like than they are to give you kudos for things that they did like.
Well,
If you can get people to compliment your furnishings, though, I mean that's a great
yeah,
bar.
yeah, for sure. So I think that just goes back to the testament of like why this is why hospitality is in our industry. Like it's obviously hospitality, but like why like focusing on the hospitality is so important rather than just like this is just purely an investment asset, like you were mentioning. Like I think all the time, like, you know, what you just said, like people are gonna be like, oh wow, that's such a really fancy, nice couch. Like, you know, it's like it's part of their stay and their experience. You know what I mean? And like it's adding like stacking all these different experiences together that leads to the 5-star. And it takes
Totally.
one little thing, like, oh, they happen to have like this one little thing, like, you know, like one time somebody was like, oh, you guys had, you know, little like extra like ponchos or something, like something stupid like that, you know, or extra toothbrush, toothpaste, like the forget me not basket. You know, and it's like the one thing that puts them over, and what that's what they actually mentioned in the review. But all of these other things led to that, you know, like built that up because if those other things sucked, you wouldn't have gotten that positive review, and they would have mentioned that. So I think that like it all stacks, and it's really important that we're focused on like all the little details, you know, in
Yes.
that stay. And that's what helps people like give you that ultimate 5-star review that we're looking for.
You got to stay in your properties.
Yeah, that's
And
great
I know
advice.
it's like
Yeah, that's great advice.
the thought of it, the thought of, you know, well, why would I stay? Or like versus, you know, it's like just like for me, I got to use Minoan. I
Yeah,
use Minoan to order stuff, and then I'll be like, I didn't. This wasn't great, or maybe it's like the returns process is not fun, or maybe it's wait, our pricing on this brand actually isn't as good as it should be. We need, and I wouldn't know those things if I didn't. You know, in the tech world, it's dog fooding. It's like using your own product. I think it's arguably more important in this industry. You got to put yourself in the guest shoes, and yeah, you get people get dinged for all. You get a visitor who's coming in from Ireland and they don't drink coffee, they actually drink tea. It's more of a tea culture, and then you don't have a tea kettle, you know, and
yeah,
maybe the property's great, but you don't have a tea kettle, and they're like, this is freaking annoying. I had to boil water in a pot and then pour, you know, and
yeah,
it's just like you can't. Yeah, it's like it's a tough game because you can get dinged for anything, and it's 1,000 tiny touch points that got to come together just to get a yeah, that was good. I don't know what it was about it, but it just felt right. That's also the most fun part about hospitality, I think, and what I expect to happen. I think because of the returns in the industry, it pulled in a lot of people who were more pure play real estate, who were like, I'm going to buy. Oh, these the ability to cash flow on these properties is really nice. I want to get into it. And it got really crowded, and you have supply and demand, and supply was outpacing demand, and it creates competition and hurts. You know, you got to split the pie into more pieces. And I think now it's like, oh, the returns aren't actually as good as I was thinking. And you have people now selling. I was hearing a story yesterday about people selling in Joshua Tree and just getting hosed,
oh yeah,
hosed.
yeah.
Like,
It's like
um,
150,000 dollars below what they bought properties for.
yeah.
Insane.
And I think that the people who have done well really view it as hospitality and
Mhm.
think about things like the milkshake bar or the hype dome or you know with other folks in the everyone's sort of got their you know there's lots of content creators in this industry who have lots of properties and everyone sort of has their things that they focus on and it works for them and I think the people who view it as hospitality who know it's hospitality who love the idea that they are hosting you know
Mhm.
they are hosting someone into their home those are the people who generally, when you zoom out and you look at the data, my instinct is that those are the people who are actually still doing quite well and will have more longevity in the
Yeah,
industry.
yeah. I mean, they're treating it truly like the business that it is, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, Mark. As we kind of wrap up things here and conclude, tell me what's the best way that people can learn more about Minoan, you, what you guys do? Yeah.
Yeah. Minoan.com, Minoan, .com. We have a bunch of information about the platform. It's free. It's free to join host. If you're a host, if you're not a host, you can't join. But if you're a host, it's free and you get access to everything in the platform. You can follow us on Instagram at Minoan Experience. And then I like to make myself accessible to folks in the industry. So you can always email me at Marc, MARC at Minoan.com. But would love to hear from folks.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Marc. So if I'm just to clarify something, so because we do have people who don't have properties yet. So if I'm not quote unquote a host yet, but I'm buying a property for the first time and will be a host, can you guys still help me?
Yeah. So you would go through a different yes, we can still help you, but we need to get more information from you. We'd have to be like, hey, we're like, we trying to get a sense of how serious you are. But yeah, certainly if we talk to you and it's like, yes, this is what I'm here for. I'm planning on buying. Like, yeah, you can still get access.
Okay, perfect. And then the last thing I want to ask you before we go, I ask this of every guest. It doesn't have to be about furnishing. It can be about anything, just your experience in the industry. What is one tip to help people cash flow positive with short-term rentals?
I'm going to have to, I think it's about not being afraid to invest for the audience that you're thinking of. And I think that, you buy the house, which is scary. You put a lot of money into a down payment or whatever. And then you got to spend all this money on furnishing. And we see a lot of people, there's some trepidation. You can overdo it. So totally, like some people, we don't see as much of that. We see a much more common theme is people being so afraid. They have this shoestring budget
Yep.
on this home, and it's like it's dead before it even starts. It's like it's not furnished appropriately for the home, or it's like it looks like quarantine housing because the bed's like in this corner and there's no